Okay, welcome my chess friends, welcome to this chess video. And I have for you a little puzzle that was sent to me by one of my friends on chess.com who has the handle of ER12. His real name is in fact Igor. He comes from Belgrade in Serbia. And he sometimes uses this channel to teach his young son about chess concepts, and I was very, very pleased to hear that. But Igor himself is a very strong chess player, and he sent me this puzzle. Now if you like, you can pause the video and try to solve this puzzle, but I'll go back to it after the lecture is finished, and we'll be in a much better position to understand just what is going on, hopefully after the lecture is over. So you can either pause the video as I've said, or you can just continue on and listen to the little lecture. Okay, my chess friends, let us discuss the differences between, or one of the differences, between a chess master and a chess amateur. And that difference is the ability to not only spot weak moves, but to offer refutation of the weak moves. And it's something that many chess amateurs struggle with, myself included. Often I'm able to see my opponent making a weak move, but I'm not always able to offer a refutation of that. And the rationale of this little video series that we will do is we will look at how a chess master is able to exploit the weak moves of his opponent. And hopefully when we play other amateurs, as we will do, we will be in a better position to offer up some type of refutation of their moves. The game begins with 1f4, and we'll look at it move by move. Of course it puts pressure on the centre, particularly the e5 square, but it does not help white develop anything. It also opens up a diagonal here, and it's not entirely clear how white can benefit from this diagonal. You certainly cannot put any pieces on it at present, but it's considered acceptable enough because it controls at least one single central square, the e5 square. The chess master played the move d5, which also exerts pressure on the centre, particularly the e4 square. But like all good chess moves, there's also a downside to this. And the downside is that this pawn cannot control the square e5 because, well, it's moved to d5 and cannot move backwards. And what this means is that the square e5 is of particular strategic importance. And you see how the chess master makes use of this when he is choosing his chess moves. In the game, white played a move that we perhaps have all played when we were learning chess moves. He played the move a4. Of course we understand that it does nothing to control the centre or aid the development of his chess pieces, but it's a move we have all played at some point when we were perhaps learning the chess moves. The person that taught me chess when I was in primary school, he used to play this way. His idea was to bring his rook up here to a3, he'd bring his other rook up here to h3, and he'd build some type of rook wall across the third rank. But it's not a terribly strong move. The question is, how do we offer a refutation of it? Would you play a generic developing move like knight to f6, or bishop to f5, or bishop to g4? Well, it's not entirely clear whether this knight is best on f6 or whether in some variations it might be better on e7. It's not entirely clear what is the best square for this bishop, either f5 or g4. Let us read the chessboard before we make our chess move. We know there's a strategically important square on e5. We can see that there is a weak king. We can see that there is a diagonal that has opened up. What is the move that meets the essence of this? And the chess master played the move e6 because it meets the essence of the position. He's now able to bring this bishop to d6 where it looks over the strategically important e5 square. He has opened up a diagonal for his queen, which may at some point be able to exploit the weakness of the diagonal leading towards the king. It is the best move in the position, the most flexible move. In the game, White actually played a good move. He played b3. Either accidentally or deliberately, I cannot say. But it contains a threat, and I wonder if you can see what the threat is. Well, he threatens to bring the bishop here to a3 and swap it for this dark square bishop. And in doing so, we will be in a lesser position to look after the strategically important e5 square. Now, if you are black, how can you offer a refutation of this without compromising your own position, without compromising your development? Well, the move that the chess master played was c5, refuting the idea of bringing the bishop here to a3, controlling the centre, facilitating the development of this knight behind the pawn chain, which one usually does in queen-pawn openings, where the knight will be able to look after the strategically important e5 square, and he keeps the option of bringing the bishop here to d6, again looking after the strategically important e5 square. It is the best move in the position because it meets the essence of the position. In the game, White played the move g3. Perhaps he was concerned about some queen check here on h4, I don't know. But it allows us to develop with a threat. You can see that if a queen ever reached this square here on h4, it would be checkmate, because the white king has nowhere to go. And what that means is that this pawn here on g3 can never leave this diagonal. It is restricted in its movement. And what that in turn means is that this pawn here on f4 is virtually undefended. And we can play the excellent bishop to d6, threatening to take the pawn here on f4, developing with a threat. In the game, White played the move bishop to b2, trying to create his own threat here on g7. What is the first question you ask when your opponent has a threat? The first question we ask is, can I ignore the threat? Do I have a greater threat? Is the threat real? Do I really need to worry about it? Because we have a threat of our own in this position. We are threatening to take this pawn here on f4. So let us visualize it in our minds. We take on f4. Bishop takes on g7. threatening to take a rook. Do we have a greater threat? Yes, we can bring the queen here to g5, threatening to take this pawn here with our bishop. And these are threats that white cannot ignore. So the answer to the question, can we ignore the threat, is yes, and we can play the excellent bishop takes on f4. In the game, white carried out his idea, bishop takes on g7, and we continued with our counter-attack. Queen to g5, threatening not only the bishop, but threatening to take this pawn here, where white will be forced to recapture, and we can play either queen takes, checkmate, or bishop takes, checkmate. In the game, it was imperative for white to find some defense, but it's almost impossible to do so. There is a defense, but it's, an amateur player would be very, very good to see it. The move is in fact bishop to d4. I would never consider playing a move like this. It just would never occur to me. Because after pawn takes and knight to h3, well, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and white is down 2 pawns, but he's still, well, kind of in the game. But it's a very, very difficult move to see, bishop to d4, just giving up the bishop like that. In the actual game, well, he took on h8, and this spells the end for him. Now you can take on g3 with the bishop or the queen. Perhaps there's a girl you're trying to impress watching your chess game. Well, you take with the queen. And bishop takes. Your chances are probably gone because she's probably thinking, well, why didn't he just take with the bishop? He must be an egomaniac. So to preserve your chances with your girlfriend and to preserve the chances with your opponent, well, it's better to take on g3 with the bishop. Pawn takes and queen takes. Checkmate. So, I hope you didn't think that was too simple, my chess friends, because it contains some fundamental chess principles and ideas. Reading the chessboard first before we make our chess move. This move e6. We saw it opened up the diagonals for the bishop and the queen. Bishop coming to look after the strategic point e5, the queen coming to menace here on h4. It was the best move which met the essence of the position. The move c5, which refuted our opponent's idea, facilitated the knight coming here looking after the strategically important e5 square, and entering the realm of tactics. Asking ourselves the question, could we ignore our opponent's threats? The answer was yes, because we had a much greater threat, and eventually it led to checkmate. So hopefully you enjoyed this little lecture, my chess friends. We will go on in coming weeks to look at some more complicated examples. But that being said, the fundamental underlying principles and ideas are the same for all chess players, whether they are a beginner or whether they are a chess master. And the hope is that as we come to be more familiar with them, we'll be able to recognize them in our own games against other amateurs and try and offer up refutations for their weak moves. So what we'll do, we'll go back to look at our little puzzle that we looked at the outset, because hopefully you will be in a much better position to solve it than you were at the beginning of this lecture, if you haven't solved it already. Okay, here's a little puzzle that we set at the outset. Hopefully now you recognize the weakness of this diagonal here. The weakness of the king position. This undefended knight. Hopefully you'll ask yourself the question, if I take this knight, can I ignore this threat of bishop takes queen? Because I will have a check here with my bishop. The only way to block it is to play c6. I can take on c6, threatening checkmate on the next move. Black will have to do something. And even if you're unable to visualize it all, you should at least be able to see these elements. And try very, very hard to concentrate and try and work it all out in your mind. So the best move is, in fact, knight takes on e5. Bishop takes is forced, otherwise black simply loses material. We can play bishop to b5 check. c6 is the only move. Takes, we're now threatening checkmate because of the weakness of the diagonal and the position of the black king. Queen c7 was played, preventing the pawn from advancing. We can play our check anyway. Discovered check. King is forced to move. And do you see the winning move? Knight takes on f7, checkmate. And this was all made possible because we recognized the elements in the position. The weakness of the diagonal. And we asked ourselves the question, can I ignore my opponent's threats? And the answer was yes. So hopefully you enjoyed that little lecture, my chess friends. I certainly enjoyed relating it to you. And I hope that you got some benefit from it. Suffice to say, I wish you well with your own chess. And take care and goodbye.